Boeing had too much sway in vetting own jets, FAA was told. FAA employees warned as early as 7 years ago that Boeing Co. had too much sway over safety approvals of new aircraft, prompting an investigation by Department of Transportation auditors who confirmed the agency hadn't done enough to hold Boeing accountable. The 2012 investigation also found that discord over Boeing's treatment had created a negative work environment among Federal Aviation Administration employees who approved new and modified aircraft designs, with many of them saying they'd faced retaliation for speaking up. Their concerns On Sunday night, a person familiar with the 737 MAX said the Transportation Department's Inspector General was examining the plane's design certification before the second of 2 deadly crashes of the almost brand-new aircraft. Earlier Sunday, shares of the Chicago-based plane maker fell early Monday after Boeing Chief Executive Officer Dennis Muilenburg and FAA officials were forced to defend the quality of testing of the new aircraft, and the Wall Street Journal reported on a grand jury probe. The stock was traded. A Seattle Times investigation found that the U.S. regulator delegated much of the safety assessment to Boeing and that the company in turn delivered an analysis with crucial flaws. Separately, a grand jury in Washington, D.C., issued a broad subpoena dated March 11 to at least one person involved in the development process of the 737 MAX jets, the Wall Street Journal reported late Sunday. In recent years, the FAA has shifted more authority over the approval of new aircraft to the manufacturer itself, even allowing Boeing to choose many of the personnel who oversee tests and vouch for safety. Just in the past, it raises for me the question of whether the agency is properly funded, properly staffed, and whether there has been enough independent oversight, said Jim Hall, who was chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board from 1994 to 2001 and is now an aviation safety consultant. Related video: Boeing faces growing scrutiny in Ethiopian crash probe provided by Reuters. At least a portion of the flight control software suspected in the 737 MAX crashes was certified by one or more Boeing employees who worked in the outsourcing arrangement, according to one person familiar with the work who wasn't authorized to speak about the matter. The Wall Street Journal first reported the Inspector General's latest inquiry. The watchdog is both Boeing and the Transportation Department declined to comment about that inquiry. In a statement on Sunday, the agency said its aircraft certification processes are well established and have consistently produced safe aircraft designs, adding that the 737 MAX certification program followed the FAA standard certification process. The Ethiopian Airlines plane minutes after it took off from Addis Ababa, killing all 157 people on board. The accident prompted in one of the most detailed descriptions yet of the relationship between Boeing and the FAA during the 737 MAX's certification, the Seattle Times unnamed engineers who said the plane maker had understated the power of the flight control software in a system safety analysis submitted to the FAA. The newspaper said Boeing told the newspaper in a statement that the FAA had reviewed the company's data and concluded the aircraft met all certification and regulatory requirements. The company, in a separate statement Sunday, Muilenburg reiterated the company's sympathies for the affected families and support for the investigation into the flight control system, known as the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. While investigators continue to work to establish definitive conclusions, Boeing is finalizing its development of a previously announced software update and pilot training revision that will address the MCAS flight control law's behavior in response to erroneous sensor inputs, Muilenburg said. The newspaper also quoted unnamed FAA technical experts who said managers prodded them to speed up the certification process as development of the MAX was 9 months behind that of rival Airbus SES A320neo. The FAA has let technical experts at aircraft makers act as its representatives to perform certain tests and approve some parts for decades. The FAA Previously, the FAA approved each appointment. Under the new approach, in 2012, a special investigator of the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Transportation sent a memo to the FAA's audit chief warning him of concerns voiced by agency employees about the new process. Our investigation substantiated employee allegations that TAD and FAA headquarters managers have not always supported TAD employee efforts to hold Boeing accountable, and this has created a negative atmosphere within the TAD, according to the June 22, 2012, report sent to the FAA. The memo was made of, the employees told the investigators that managers had overturned a recommendation by staff to remove the administrator Boeing had chosen for the program and had not adequately addressed employees' concerns about potential conflicts of interest, the memo said. The employees, despite those concerns, as well as others raised in a subsequent report by the Inspector General, Congress has embraced the program as a way to improve the FAA's efficiency. President Donald Trump signed into law a change on October 5. It allows the agency doesn't have the budget to do every test, and the use of designees is absolutely necessary, said Steve Wallace, the former head of accident investigations at the FAA. For the most part, but the program was also at issue in the FAA's 2013 grounding of Boeing's 787 Dreamliner after 2 fires of battery packs. Boeing's designated a 2015 report by the Department of Transportation's Inspector General, requested by U.S. Representative Peter DeFazio, found the FAA lacked an effective staffing model and risk-based oversight process over the OTA program. DeFazio, an Oregon Democrat, now heads the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and has said he will conduct a rigorous investigation to make sure the FAA is protecting safety. Hall, the former NTSB chairman, said the agency's move to shift power to the manufacturers contributed to the unusual situation in which 2 of Boeing's newly introduced aircraft were grounded in a period of 6 years. Before the Dreamliner, when I was chairman of the NTSB, my single most important job was who we hired, Hall said. Do we have in the federal? As the investigation continues, mourners marched in the hundreds past the Library of Parliament in Addis Ababa to Selassie Cathedral for a funeral service Sunday, wearing black or the sea green uniforms of Ethiopian Airlines and carrying photos of the dead. After a priest read, with assistance from Margaret Newkirk, Nizar Manik, Michael Sasso, and Rita Devlin Marrier.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.